The galactic trade station called Endless Dawn floated in the dark space between three solar systems. It was old. Some said it was built before any living species could remember. Now it served as a meeting place for traders, travelers, and those who had business they did not want others to know about. 47 different species walked its metal halls. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that changed color with their moods. They came from worlds of ice and worlds of fire, from planets with 3 suns and moons made of glass. But despite all their differences, they all agreed on one thing. No one crossed Commander. His people came from a heavy gravity world where everything was a fight. They grew tall and strong, with scales harder than steel and reflexes faster than light itself. Stood nearly 3 meters tall. His eyes were amber-colored like burning coal, and they missed nothing. His claws could cut through metal. His voice could silence a room. For 6 cycles had been the unofficial law on Endless Dawn. When species argued, he decided who was right. When fights broke out, he ended them. The station had official councils and courts, but everyone knew the truth. His word was final. And in all that time, no one had ever struck him. Not once, not even close. Some had tried, of course. A drunk warrior from the outer colonies, a desperate thief caught in the act, a proud general who thought his military training made him special. They all failed, moved before they could blink. He saw attacks coming before the attackers themselves knew they would strike. It was said that fighting was like fighting the future itself. So when the human woman walked into the council chamber that morning, no one paid much attention. Her name she was a cargo specialist on a small trading ship called the Promise. She was average height for a human, with black hair cut short and practical. Her clothes were simple work clothes, stained with grease and dust from loading freight. She looked tired. She looked ordinary. She did not look like someone who would change everything. Had come to file a complaint. Her shipmate, a young man named, had been accused of stealing from a merchant. The punishment for theft from was severe, would be taken to the detention block, and few who entered that place came out the same. But Nu was innocent. She had the proof. The council chamber was large and circular, with seats rising up like steps in a theater. Representatives from a dozen species sat in those seats, but they were not the ones who mattered. Stood at the center of the room, his massive arms folded across his chest. He watched approach with the same mild interest a cat might show a mouse. Stopped at the proper distance and bowed her head slightly. She had learned the customs. She knew how to show respect without showing fear. "I am here to contest the charges against she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Did not steal from the merchant. The ship's records show he was aboard the Promise during the time of the alleged theft. He could not have been in 2 places at once." A merchant in the upper seats made a sound of disgust. That was himself, the one who had made the accusation. His scales were darker than and his eyes held nothing but contempt. "The human lies," said. "Ship records can be changed. Everyone knows humans are skilled at deception." Kept her eyes on. He was the one who would decide. "The records are by the station's own systems," she said. "They cannot be changed without leaving traces. There are no traces. The records are true." Unfolded his arms slowly. He took 1 step toward, then another. Each step made the floor shake slightly. He stopped close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. "The merchant is a respected member of the trade guild," said. His voice was deep and slow, like stones grinding together. "His word carries weight. You're a human. Humans are new to this station, new to this region of space. Your word carries nothing." Felt her heart beating faster, but she did not step back. She did not look away. "The evidence carries weight," she said. "I am asking only that you look at it." Stared at her for a long moment. The chamber was completely silent. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. Then turned away. "I do not need to look at evidence," he said. "The merchant's word is enough. Your will be taken to detention at sunset. The matter is closed. Something cold settled in stomach. She had expected this. She had hoped for something different, but she had expected this. This is not justice, she said quietly. Stopped walking, he did not turn around. This is order, he said. Justice is a human word, it means nothing here. He walked out of the chamber. The other representatives began to leave as well, talking among themselves in low voices. A few glanced at with something like pity. Most did not look at her at all. Passed close by her on his way out. He leaned down, his breath hot and foul. Your friend will learn what happens to thieves, he whispered, and you will learn what happens to those who waste Commander's time. Said nothing. She stood alone in the empty chamber for a long time after everyone had gone. That evening she visited in the holding area. He sat behind an energy barrier, his young face trying hard to look brave. He was only 23 years old. He had joined the crew just 8 months ago, hopping to see the galaxy and find adventure. This was not the adventure he had imagined. The captain is filing protests through official channels, told him. He is doing everything he can. Nodded slowly. Official channels take time. I will be in detention before any protest is heard. I know. He met her eyes through the barrier. Do not do anything foolish. They want a reason to make an example of humans. We are too new here, too weak. If you cause trouble, it will only make things worse for everyone. Reached out and pressed her palm against the barrier. It was warm and tingled slightly. Since when do I do foolish things? She asked. Despite everything, almost smiled. Since always, he said, since the first day I met you. Did not argue, she could not argue, he was right. She left the holding area and walked through the station's corridors alone. Around her, aliens of all kinds went about their business, buying and selling, arguing and laughing. None of them noticed her. None of them cared about one human woman with a problem. But was thinking. She was remembering something she had read long ago in the old texts about law, something about challenges, something about rights that even could not ignore. She walked until she found a quiet terminal. She sat down and began to search through the legal databases. Somewhere in those files, there was an answer. She was going to find it. The human quarter of Endless Dawn was small. It was tucked away in the lower levels of the station, near the cargo bays and the recycling systems. The air there smelled like metal and old water. The lights flickered sometimes. It was not a place of honor. But it was home in a way. Humans had only been traveling the stars for 50 years. They were still learning, still finding their place among older and more powerful species. The human quarter was proof that they existed, that they mattered, even if only a little. Sat in the common room with 2 of her closest friends, was the engineer of the Promise. She was small and quick, with clever hands that could fix anything. Was the ship's medic, a quiet man with gentle eyes who had seen too much suffering and still believed in kindness. The 3 of them spoke in low voices, even though they were alone. Old habits. On a station where walls had ears, speaking softly was survival. I found something, said. She placed a data pad on the table between them. Law allows for something called the right of contestation. If someone believes a judgment is unjust, they can challenge the arbiter directly. Picked up the data pad and read quickly. Her face grew pale. This is a physical challenge. Combat, you would have to fight himself. I know. No one has ever hit him, said. Not in 6 cycles. He moves faster than anyone can see. He has broken bones with single strikes. He has killed people, killed them. I know, said again. Leaned forward. His voice was soft but serious. This is not bravery. This is suicide, is 3 times your size. His scales are like armor. His claws can cut through steel. What do you think you can do against that? Looked at her hands. They were ordinary hands, small and from years of work. They did not look like weapons. I do not know yet, she admitted. But I know that if I do nothing, we'll disappear into that detention block. I have heard the stories. The people who come out of there are not the same. Some do not come out at all. And if you die in this challenge, asked, what then? Still goes to detention. The rest of the crew suffers because they are connected to you. They use your death as proof that humans are weak. Was quiet for a moment. She had thought about all of this. She had thought about it until her head hurt. There is something else, she said slowly, something they do not understand about humans. And waited. Has never fought a human before, continued. None of the have. They think they know what we are. They see that we are small and soft. They see that our bones break and our skin bleeds. They think we are prey animals who stumbled into space by accident. And asked. And they are wrong. Looked up, and there was something hard in her eyes now, something that had not been there before. Humans did not survive on our world by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by being smart, by watching, by learning, by understanding our enemies before we fought them. She picked up the data pad from his hands. I have 3 days before the challenge. I am going to use that time. I am going to learn everything there is to know about how fight, how they move, how they think, and I am going to find a weakness. What if there is no weakness? Asked quietly. Stood up, she looked at her friends with steady eyes. There is always a weakness, she said. Everything has one, even Commander. She left the common room and walked back to her small cabin on the Promise. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew was on shore leave or working on the station. Only a few essential personnel remained aboard. Captain was waiting for her outside her cabin door. He was an older man, past 50, with gray in his hair and lines on his face that spoke of hard years and hard decisions. He had commanded the Promise for 15 years. He had seen good times and bad times. He had buried crew members and celebrated victories. He was not a man who frightened easily. But right now he looked afraid. I heard what you are planning, he said. His voice was low and rough. I cannot stop you. The right of contestation is your right under station law, but I want you to understand what you are doing. I understand, Captain. Do you? He stepped closer. I have seen fight. Once 3 years ago, a warrior from the Empire challenged him. They are strong. They are trained from birth for combat. This warrior was the best of his generation. What happened? His face was grim. Killed him in 4 seconds. 4 seconds that did not land a single blow. He did not even come close. Felt cold, but she did not let it show. I am not, she said. I will not fight the way of fights. Then how will you fight? Was silent for a moment. She was still figuring that out herself. Differently, she finally said. I will fight differently. Studied her face for a long time. He was looking for doubt, for weakness, for any sign that she might change her mind. He did not find any. Finally, he sighed and stepped aside. The ship's training room is available, he said. Use whatever you need. And he paused. If you survive this, I want you to know that I am proud to have you on my crew. If you do not survive, I want you to know the same thing. Nodded, she did not trust herself to speak. That night she began her research. She watched every recording she could find of in combat. She studied the way he stood, the way he breathed, the way his muscles tensed before he moved. She learned the patterns of fighting styles, the traditions passed down through generations on their heavy-gravity world. And slowly, very slowly, she began to see something. Was fast, incredibly fast, but he was also predictable. He had spent so many years winning that he had stopped adapting. He expected his enemies to attack first. He expected them to charge, to swing, to try to overpower him. He expected them to be afraid. No one had ever surprised him. No one had ever attacked before he was ready. Spent hours in the training room practicing movements she had learned in her youth. Not military movements, not combat forms from some warrior tradition, just simple things. Street movements, survival tricks, ways of moving that did not look like attacks at all. By the third day, she was ready. Or at least, she told herself she was ready. At dawn on the day of the challenge, she walked to the central plaza of Endless Dawn. Hundreds of beings had gathered to watch. Word had spread across the entire station. A human was challenging. A human woman. It was either the bravest thing or the thing anyone had ever seen. Most believed it was the. Walked through the crowd alone. She felt their eyes on her. She heard their whispers. Some were laughing. Some were making bets on how quickly she would die. A few, very few, watched with something that might have been hope. She reached the center of the plaza and waited. Would arrive soon. And then everything would be decided. The central plaza of Endless Dawn was the largest open space on the station. It had been designed long ago for gatherings, for celebrations, for the important moments that brought different species together. The ceiling rose high above, showing the stars through transparent panels. The floor was smooth stone, worn by millions of footsteps over centuries. Today, it would serve a different purpose. Stood at the center of the plaza alone. She wore simple clothes, dark pants, a loose shirt, flat shoes with good grip, nothing that could slow her down, nothing that an enemy could grab. Around her, the crowd pressed close. Beings of all shapes and sizes filled every available space. They stood on balconies and ledges. They hung from support structures. They floated in anti-gravity harnesses. All of them wanted to see what would happen next. Most of them expected to see a human die. The whispers surrounded like the sound of insects. She heard fragments of conversation in a dozen different languages. Her translator implant could not keep up with all of them, but she caught enough. Foolish creature. Dead before she knows it. Why do humans never learn? Closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She had learned long ago to ignore the voices of doubt. She had learned to focus on what mattered. Right now, what mattered was surviving the next few minutes. She heard the crowd grow silent. She opened her eyes. Was coming. The commander walked through the crowd like a ship cutting through water. Beings moved aside quickly, almost falling over themselves to get out of his way. He did not acknowledge them. His amber eyes were fixed on. He wore ceremonial armor for the occasion. It was black and red, decorated with symbols of his rank and honors. His claws were polished and sharp. His scales gleamed under the plaza lights. He looked like death itself. Stopped a few meters away from. He studied her with the same expression he might use when examining an insect. "You understand what you have done," he said. It was not a question. "I understand," replied. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. The right of contestation is ancient. It was created for warriors to challenge unjust judgments. You are not a warrior. You are a cargo specialist. You load boxes for a living. "The right does not require me to be a warrior," said. "It only requires me to believe that your judgment is wrong. I believe it, is innocent." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was cold and without humor. "Your belief will not save you." "Maybe not," agreed, "but it brought me here, that is something." Tilted his massive head slightly. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Interest, perhaps, or confusion. He was not used to beings who stood before him without trembling. "I have killed many challengers," he said. "Warriors from 100 worlds, fighters trained from birth, creatures with weapons built into their bodies. None of them touched me, not once." "I know." "Then you know you cannot win." Allowed herself a small smile. It surprised her that she could smile at a moment like this. "Winning is not the only goal," she said. "Sometimes making a point is enough." His eyes narrowed. He did not like that answer. He did not understand it. "What point could you possibly make?" Looked past him at the crowd that filled the plaza. She saw and species she did not have names for. She saw beings who had written off humans as weak and foolish. She saw a galaxy that did not yet know what humans truly were. "The point," she said slowly, "is that we do not quit. We do not give up. You can break our bones, you can spill our blood, you can kill us, but you cannot make us surrender, not ever." The plaza was completely silent now. Even the whispers had stopped. Every eye was on the human woman who spoke to Commander as if she were his equal. Was still for a long moment. Then he raised one clawed hand and pointed at the ground between them. "We begin when the signal sounds," he said. "The fight ends when one of us cannot continue. There are no other rules." Nodded, she had expected this. Challenges were simple, they were brutal, they did not allow for mercy. A being somewhere in the crowd raised a ceremonial horn to its mouth. The sound it made was low and deep, like the cry of some ancient beast. It echoed through the plaza and faded into silence. The challenge had begun. Moved immediately. He did not wait. He did not hesitate. He raised his massive right arm and swung it in a crushing arc, aimed directly at its head. It was a killing blow. He expected to end this in seconds, just as he had ended so many challenges before. But was not there. She had moved before his arm even began to swing. Not after. Before. She had seen the shift in his weight, the slight tensing of his shoulder muscles, the tiny movement of his eyes. She had read his intent before he himself fully knew what he was going to do. That was the human gift, not speed, not strength, but the ability to read others, to predict, to anticipate. Humans had evolved on a world filled with predators. They had not survived by fighting those predators directly. They had survived by watching them, by learning their patterns, by knowing what they would do before they did it. His clawed hand swept through empty air. He stumbled slightly, surprised by the lack of impact. In 6 cycles, no one had ever dodged his first strike. No one had ever even tried. He turned, searching for his target, his amber eyes suddenly uncertain. Was already inside his guard. She had not retreated. She had moved forward toward him, into the space where he least expected her to be. And in the moment of his confusion, she struck. Her fist connected with his throat. It was a precise blow, aimed at the soft tissue between the hard scales. It was not a powerful blow. Human fists could not generate the force needed to truly hurt her, but it was unexpected, and it made him choke. Before he could recover, she struck again, and again. Her second blow hit the nerve cluster under his left arm. Her third hit the same spot on his right side. These were targets she had found in her research, places where the body was vulnerable, places they never bothered to guard because no enemy ever got close enough to reach them. Staggered, he could not believe what was happening. Pain was exploding in places he had never felt pain before. This small, soft creature was hurting him. Did not stop. She could not stop. If she gave him time to recover, to adapt, she would die. Her elbow came up and caught him under the jaw. His head snapped back. His teeth clicked together. For just an instant, his vision went white. Then her knee drove into the side of his thigh, hitting the joint where his leg met his hip. It was another spot she had studied, another weakness in the form. His leg buckled. Commander fell. He fell to his knees on the stone floor of the plaza, gasping for breath, his body shaking with pain and shock. Above him, the human woman stood with her fist still raised, breathing hard but still standing. 5 strikes. She had landed 5 strikes before he could land even one. The plaza was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Looked up at, his amber eyes were wide. In 6 cycles, no one had ever seen that expression on his face. It was something entirely new. It was fear. "What?" he whispered, his voice raw and broken. "What are you?" Looked down at him. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Persistent," she said. "We are persistent, and we do not wait for permission." She stepped back, lowering her fists. The challenge was not over, could still rise. He could still fight, but something had changed. Something fundamental had shifted in the balance of the galaxy. A human had struck Commander. A human had made him fall. Nothing would ever be quite the same again. The plaza remained frozen in that impossible moment. Commander, the undefeated arbiter of endless dawn, was on his knees. A human woman stood before him, still breathing, still alive. The universe had tilted on its axis. His mind struggled to understand what had happened. In all his years, in all his battles, he had never experienced anything like this. He had trained since childhood. He had mastered every combat form his people knew. He had fought creatures 10 times more dangerous than this small human. And yet she had struck him 5 times before he could even react. His body ached in places he had not known could ache. His throat burned where her first blow had landed. His sides throbbed from the strikes to his nerve clusters. His jaw felt loose and his leg trembled beneath him. But more than the physical pain, he felt something else, something worse. Doubt. For the first time in his life, doubted himself. The crowd began to stir. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. Beings pointed and gestured. Some looked at with new eyes. Others looked at with something that might have been disappointment. The merchant pushed his way to the front of the crowd. His dark scales were flushed with anger. His eyes blazed with hatred. "Get up," he shouted at. "Get up and finish her. She is nothing. A soft-skinned animal. Destroy her." Heard the words, but they seemed to come from very far away. He was still trying to understand. How had she moved so fast? How had she known what he was going to do before he did it? He really looked at her for the first time. She was small, fragile-looking. Her skin would tear under his claws. Her bones would shatter under his fists. By every measure his people used, she was weak. But she was still standing, and he was on his knees. Watched him carefully. She knew this was not over. She had hurt him, surprised him, but she had not defeated him. Was still dangerous. One blow from those massive arms would break her in half. One swipe from those claws would open her from shoulder to hip. She had used her one advantage. The element of surprise was gone. If he attacked again, she would have to be perfect. One mistake would mean death. "You can yield," she said quietly. "The right allows it." His amber eyes focused on her. Something flickered in them. Not anger, not hatred, something more complicated. "Do not yield," he said. His voice was rough but steadier now. "There is no shame in recognizing a worthy opponent. You are not worthy, you are human." Shrugged slightly, "And yet here we are." Placed one massive hand on the ground and pushed himself up. His leg protested, but it held. He rose to his full height, towering over once again. But something was different now. The absolute confidence was gone. The certainty had cracked. He raised his fists and settled into a fighting stance. But this time he did not attack immediately. This time he watched. He waited. He was learning. Felt her heart sink slightly. She had hoped her initial assault would be enough to end this. She had hoped the shock would make him yield, but was too proud, too stubborn. He would rather die than admit defeat to a human. She understood that. In a strange way, she respected it. But she could not let him win. His life depended on her. The future of humans on this station depended on her. She could not fail. They circled each other slowly. The crowd watched in breathless silence. No one made a sound. No one looked away. Fainted left, testing her reactions. Did not move. She knew it was not a real attack. She could see it in the way his weight was distributed, in the tension of his shoulders, in the direction of his gaze. He fainted right. Again she did not move. His eyes narrowed. He was beginning to understand. She was not reacting to his movements. She was reacting to something else, something deeper, something he could not hide. "How are you doing this?" he asked. There was genuine curiosity in his voice now, beneath the anger and the wounded pride. "Your body tells me what you will do," said. "Every being has patterns. Every fighter has habits. You are no different. I have trained my whole life to hide such things." You have trained your whole life to fight beings who rely on speed and strength. You have never fought someone who relies on observation. Was silent for a moment, then he nodded slowly. Then I will not give you time to observe. He attacked. This time it was different. He did not wind up for a massive blow. He did not telegraph his intentions with obvious movements. He simply exploded forward, faster than had seen him move before, his entire body becoming a weapon. Threw herself to the side. She felt his claws pass through the air where her head had been. She rolled and came up running, putting distance between them. But was already turning, already pursuing. He was not giving her time to think, time to read him. He was attacking with pure instinct, letting his body move without conscious thought. It was working. Dodged another strike, but barely. The third attack caught the edge of her sleeve and tore it open. She felt the heat of blood where one claw had grazed her arm. The crowd gasped. First blood had been drawn. Laughed from the edge of the plaza. Yes, finish her. Show the galaxy what happens to humans who forget their place. His mind raced. She could not keep dodging forever. She was fast but was faster. She was smart but he was adapting. Soon, very soon, he would catch her. She needed to end this, now. She stopped running. Was surprised by her sudden stillness. He hesitated for just a fraction of a second, wondering if it was a trap. It was. Charged directly at him, not away, not to the side, straight at the massive commander. It was the last thing he expected. It was the last thing anyone expected. She dove low, under his reaching arms, and slammed her shoulder into his midsection. It was like hitting a wall, but she used her momentum to carry her past his guard. She came up behind him, spinning, and drove her heel into the back of his damaged knee. Fell again. This time he fell forward, his hands barely catching him before his face hit the stone floor. Did not stop. She jumped onto his back, wrapped her arms around his thick neck, and squeezed with every ounce of strength she had. It was not a strong grip. Human arms were not made for strangling, but she was not trying to strangle him. She was pressing on the blood vessels in his neck, cutting off the flow to his brain. Thrashed beneath her, he reached back, trying to grab her, trying to tear her away. His claws came close, so close. One of them cut a line across her cheek. Blood ran down her face. But she did not let go. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Commander's movements grew slower, weaker. His amber eyes began to lose focus. His reaching arms dropped to his sides. And then he was still. Held on for 3 more seconds, making sure. Then she released her grip and rolled off his massive body, gasping for breath. The plaza was absolutely silent. Then slowly stirred. He was not dead. She had not held the grip long enough to kill him. But he was beaten. He could not rise. He could barely move. Stood over him, blood running down her arm and her face, her chest heaving with exhaustion. "Do you yield?" she asked. Looked up at her. His eyes were clearer now, but something in them had changed forever. "I yield," he said. The words seemed to cost him everything. The plaza erupted. The eruption of sound that filled the plaza was unlike anything Endless Dawn had heard in generations. Beings who had never agreed on anything suddenly found themselves united in shock, in disbelief, in a strange and unexpected wonder. A human had defeated Commander. A human woman, small and soft and fragile, had brought the undefeated Arbiter to his knees and made him yield. The universe would never look quite the same again. Stood in the center of the chaos, barely hearing the roar of voices around her. Her body was beginning to register the damage she had taken. Her arm throbbed where his claw had cut her. Her cheek stung from the slash across her face. Every muscle ached from the effort of the fight. But she was alive, and she had won. Was the first to reach her. The medic pushed through the crowd with surprising strength, his gentle face tight with worry. He grabbed her arm and examined the wound quickly. "You need treatment," he said. "Both cuts are deep. You are losing blood. First, said, her voice was hoarse, make sure they release him. They will release him, said another voice. Turned, Captain stood a few steps away, his weathered face showing an expression she had never seen before. It took her a moment to recognize it. Pride, pure, overwhelming pride. The station council is already meeting, continued. The right of contestation was successful. The original judgment is overturned, is free. Closed her eyes for a moment. Relief washed through her, so strong it almost made her dizzy. And the merchant, she asked. Expression hardened. Attempted to leave the station 10 minutes ago. He was stopped at the docking ring. It seems the council has questions about the original accusation against. Questions about why a respected merchant would make a false claim. Nodded slowly. She was not surprised. Beings like relied on the protection of beings like. Without that protection, their lies became visible. Pressed a medical patch against her arm, and she winced at the sting of healing agents entering her blood. He examined the cut on her cheek next, shaking his head. You will have a scar, he said quietly. Touched her face carefully. Good, I want to remember this. She looked across the plaza, searching for. She found him sitting on the stone floor, surrounded by other. They were speaking to him in low voices, their expressions uncertain. Some looked angry, some looked lost. None of them seemed to know what to do. Looked up, and their eyes met across the crowded space. For a long moment they just looked at each other. The human who should have been weak, the who should have been unstoppable. Two beings from opposite ends of the galaxy, connected now by blood and battle. Then nodded, just slightly, just enough for her to see. She nodded back. The crowd began to thin as beings returned to their lives, their shops, their ships. The excitement was fading, replaced by the slow process of understanding what had happened and what it meant. Some would remember this day as a curiosity. Others would remember it as the beginning of something new. Was taken to the ship's medical bay, where treated her wounds properly. Came to visit, her clever face full of questions. How did you do it? Asked. I have watched the recordings from the plaza cameras. You moved before he did. Every time, it was like you could see the future. Lay back on the medical bed, staring at the ceiling. Not the future, she said. The present. I watched his body, his muscles, his eyes, his weight. Every being broadcasts what they are about to do. Most species never learn to see it. Humans learned because we had to, because we were never the strongest or the fastest. We survived by watching. And the final move, when you choked him. Blood choke. It cuts off the flow of blood to the brain. Works on almost any species with a similar cardiovascular system. Included. Smiled slightly. They never expected anyone to get that close. That was their mistake. Was quiet for a while, processing this information. You know what this means, she finally said. For all of us, for every human on this station, for every human in this region of space. I know. Some species will respect us now, others will fear us, some will hate us. I know. Nodded and left without saying anything more. There was nothing more to say. That evening was released from the holding area. He found in the common room of the Promise, sitting alone in the dim light. His young face was pale, but his eyes were bright with emotion. They told me what you did, he said. His voice shook slightly. They said you challenged himself for me. Someone had to, replied. Sat down across from her. He was silent for a long moment, struggling to find words. I do not know how to thank you, he finally said. You risked everything, your life, your future. You could have died. Looked at him steadily. You would have done the same for me. Started to protest, then stopped. He thought about it honestly. I do not know if I would have been brave enough, he admitted. The next time you will be. Reached out and placed her hand over his. That is how it works. Someone shows you what is possible, and then you know. The next morning, as the Promise prepared to leave Endless Dawn, received an unexpected visitor. Commander stood at the bottom of the boarding ramp alone. He wore simple clothes now, not his ceremonial armor. The wounds had given him were healing, but she could see the stiffness in his movements. She walked down the ramp to meet him. They stood facing each other in the loading bay, neither speaking for a moment. "I have studied your species since our encounter," finally said. His voice was quieter than before, less certain. "You are not faster than us. You are not stronger. Your bodies are fragile. You are short." "All true," agreed. "Then how?" She considered the question carefully. This was important. This was perhaps the most important thing she would ever explain. "We spent 100,000 years learning to read each other," she said. "Learning to predict, to adapt, to strike first when we had to. We are not the apex predators of our world. We are not the strongest animals on Earth. We are just the ones who learn to think like predators, to watch like predators, to wait like predators, and when the moment comes, to act without hesitation." Was silent for a long time, absorbing this. "I was the undefeated champion of this station," he said. "I believed I was superior to all other beings. You showed me that I was wrong. I showed you that you were unprepared. There is a difference." Looked at her with something new in his amber eyes. Not fear exactly, more like respect. The kind of respect one predator shows another. "I will remember this," he said. "I will remember what you taught me." Extended her hand. It was a human gesture, one that she knew he had studied. "Good," she said, "because there are a lot more of us coming, and we learn fast." Looked at her hand for a moment. Then, carefully, as if handling something both fragile and dangerous, he took it in his own massive grip. "I believe you," he said. They shook hands, human and standing in the loading bay of a small trading ship on a station at the edge of known space. It was a small moment, a quiet moment, but it was the beginning of something larger. As the Promise lifted off and began its journey to the next port, stood at the observation window and watched endless dawn grow smaller in the distance. Behind her, her crew went about their duties. Ahead of her, the galaxy waited, vast and full of wonders and dangers. Humans were new to this universe. They were small, they were fragile, they were underestimated. But they were persistent, they were adaptable, they were survivors. And now, thanks to one woman and one impossible fight, the galaxy was beginning to understand. The humans were here to stay. And they would not be overlooked again.